The rest of the international community has really tried to keep Russia from being able to profit off of oil revenue during the war with Ukraine.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's actually unclear how much success those efforts have had.
Right.
The a European climate think tank put out a report actually that kind of summarized exactly 1 year after the Russian oil price cap took force, just how successful it was. And they found that there was a lot of room for growth in the coming year, and actually recommended that the capped price be slashed in half to just $30 per barrel. They said that there's evidence that under the current price cap endorsed by the U.S., other G7 nations, it's cut into Russia's oil revenue by about 14%, $37 billion. But there's evidence that there's wide evasion going on.
Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle, and I'm joined today by energy and environment reporter Breanne Deppisch. Breanne, the situation in Venezuela has sort of become an inflection point for oil markets. Talk a little bit about what's going on and why is this having an impact on oil?
Absolutely. So this conflict has actually been sort of escalating for the last couple of years. It's been something since international arbitrators drew the lines in 1899, but revived in the years since. Basically, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has held an election recently asking voters to consider 5 questions related to the potential annexation of Guyana's Essequibo region, which is basically along the coast, and it is home to a lot of recoverable oil reserves and other offshore things that are very lucrative, just a very oil and mineral rich area.
Sure. So the international community is not very happy about this annexation.
The international community is really upset. They are pretty up in arms. Brazil actually sent some troops and some other military convoys and things up to protect its northern border, which it shares with both countries. And several days after the vote, Maduro actually came on television, and in this really sort of bellicose, public speech, he said that he had not only ordered oil and gas companies to begin activities in the region. He said that he gave Guyana basically 3 months to cease operations in the area, all their oil and gas operations and mining. And then he said that they were also preparing a special military group to go into the zone. Obviously not great, and sort of raising the scepter of a broader conflict or even a potential war.
And this has to be displeasing to ExxonMobil and some of the oil companies that are in this area.
Yeah, absolutely. So this whole thing really reached a fever pitch beginning in 2016 when ExxonMobil made these big offshore discoveries in Guyana. Since then, they've just continued to find more and more. I think they're somewhere in the range of 11 billion expected recoverable resources there today. And so, in light of that, I've spoken to a couple fellows who have told me that that's really the push behind Maduro's whole interest in the region, right? Prior, he really wanted nothing to do with them, didn't care one way or another. But now, with that going on, and in wake of their own pretty crippling sanctions that the U.S. has levied against Maduro's regime in recent years, they are sort of eager to get a piece of that pie.
Sure. So another guy who's been under some pretty crippling sanctions is Russian President Vladimir Putin, and there's a piece of pie that he might want, and so he's made a visit to Saudi Arabia. What sort of things were discussed?
Yes, so there was sort of a flurry of Middle Eastern diplomacy from Putin, which is somewhat odd. We don't normally see him, bebopping around to different countries. He was flanked when he went to the Middle East by 4 fighter jets. Seems like a Putin-esque way to travel.
Right.
He actually met with Crown Prince MBS in Saudi Arabia, and then with leaders in the UAE, where they discussed, I'm told, OPEC production, among other things. This comes after they further deepened production cuts for 2024.
Major sticking point with President Biden.
A major sticking point with President Biden. Russia and Saudi Arabia have been the 2 biggest, they've made the biggest cuts, basically, respectively. And so it's unclear what they discussed, if they want to deepen cuts even further at their next meeting. But that could be on the table. Prices have really not responded yet to those cuts. In fact, I think they're at their lowest in 9 months. You know, so we're really not seeing the type of price pressure putting Brent crude between $80 to $100 per barrel. That's what Saudis and other OPEC Plus members really aim for.
Yet the rest of the international community has really tried to keep Russia from being able to profit off of oil revenue during the war with Ukraine.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's actually unclear how much success those efforts have had.
Right.
The a European climate think tank put out a report actually that kind of summarized exactly 1 year after the Russian oil price cap took force, just how successful it was. And you know, they found that there was a lot of room for growth in the coming year, and actually recommended that the capped price be slashed in half to just $30 per barrel. They said that there's evidence that under the current price cap endorsed by the U.S., other G7 nations, it's cut into Russia's oil revenue by about 14%, $37 billion. But there's evidence that there's wide evasion going on through a lack of enforcement measures, third country refiners that are buying Russian crude oil, refining it, sending it to European Union and other countries that have banned Russian crude, and then there's also the rise of off-book shadow tankers. So unless the U.S. and its allies really step up to enforce and sanction these tankers that are continuing to sort of skirt the sanctions, you know, Russia is going to continue to pad its war pockets with oil.
The tip of the cap.
Basically. Exactly.
Thank you, Breanne.
Thank you.
You can read Breanne and subscribe to our Daily on Energy newsletter at washingtonexaminer.com.